Okay, so we're live. So we're starting, still seeing people joining us. We give them a couple of minutes to find their seats and their rhythm. But whilst doing that, I can welcome you guys to this webinar, which is the short title of How Nordic Nest Connect the Data in their Composable Stack without being overwhelmed with integrations. And before we continue with this, there's a couple of ground rules in this webinar. During the whole webinar, you can ask questions. We'll try to answer as many as we can, but also toilets and exits are where you left them. So you're responsible for that. But the people or the two guys you see here, I can start with myself, the least important. My name is Jimmy Ekbeck, CTO, one of the founders of Octo. Before that, I worked a lot within e-com, PIM space with customers like H&M, Cartier, Shell & Company. So been around this space for far too long, but I still love it. And you can see the star in this webinar I have with me here, Jakob. I'm so happy to have you with me, Jakob, on my side here, but I'll let you introduce yourself here to the people.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Jimmy, and great to be here to talk about one of my favorite topics, e-commerce and what you can do with in that area. So my name is Jakob Rastad. I've been a CTO for a couple of e-commerce companies and been around for a lot of years now, it seems. Before joining Nordic Nest,
when you see your years there, like 20 years and 15 years, we can kind of see that we've been around for quite some time.
Yeah, exactly. So before joining Nordic Nest, I was with a company called Out North and joined them when they had, I think, about around 2 million euro in e-commerce revenue, which was a very small company and was part of that and driving that upwards to around 50 million before joining Nordic Nest. So really love e-commerce, really love retail and all the technical things you can do in that area.
Yeah, I must say you're one of the more technical and business savvy guys I ever work with. So that's compliments. So that's us, and we'll take you through this journey, and hopefully you'll take a lot from it as well. But to start with, Jakob, can't you give us kind of your day-to-day, the backgrounds of Nordic Nest and all the brands that you work with, and kind of the current context you're operating in?
Certainly, and I'll try not to be too long. You have to stop me, Jimmy, if I'm going too much.
I'm used to
it. So Nordic Nest was actually founded 20 years ago, back in 2002, but it hasn't been growing that fast all the time. It's been the last 4 years that we'll actually see in this kind of hyper growth at the company. So back in 2017, we had around 20 million euro as in yearly turnover, and it all in 2018 we sort of started a journey that has brought us to here today, where we this year will be sort of north of 200 million euro in yearly revenue. So in just 4 years we tenfolded
it's been amazing. To look from the side, it's an amazing journey to be part of.
Yeah, and it's just been incredible. And what I believe are the key elements that has brought us here is actually that we have at Nordic Nest we have 3 cornerstones that sort of help guide us in both day-to-day decisions and also very big strategic decisions. And those are that number 1, we want to have the world's best customer experience. Number 2, we want to have the world's most motivated team. And number 3, we want to run the most profitable retail in the world. And the key here is that they are in that order. So we don't start with profitability and then say, okay, it would be nice with some with a good customer experience. Yeah, exactly. Because we think if we do the first 2 really well and we do them by heart really well, the third one will come in the long run. So those 3 sort of rules are the only rules we have at the company. If you can do something that says yes on each of these, you will probably make a good decision. So by using that, we can sort of create a lot of smaller autonomous teams that can work independently from each other. And by doing that, we achieve a very fast-moving organization that can drive the business forwards in a very high pace without the need of the sort of usual governance rules and that sort of thing. So I think that's one key thing that's really helped us grow this much in this short amount of time.
And we can just continue. Sorry.
Yeah, and the great thing about these sort of smaller autonomous teams is that not only are they helping us move forward quicker, but since you empower all the employees to make good decisions and make good business and drive the business forward, it also helps us in our second cornerstone, which is to have the world's most motivated team. So it's sort of a good spiral upwards.
Yep. No, but it's strong incentives, and as you say, if you can answer yes on these, then go. And I know you're very entrepreneurial, although you're still growing, so which is it's a kudos to you guys by having that spirit still growing and sparking or igniting inside the company. But I think one thing here, just highlight some of these numbers, because I think we discussed this before going live on stage here, but I think it's so cool that you're doing all of this from Kalmar, which is a town on the southern part of Sweden. But it's like looking at where you operate from Kalmar globally in the whole of the world. So just run us through some of these numbers here, because that gives the context of the operation you're driving.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Jimmy. So we're actually really proud of operating from, as you said, Kalmar, which is quite a small town in the southeastern part of Sweden. I think it's around 50,000 inhabitants. So in Swedish terms,
all of them
not even a big city.
Work with you guys.
Yeah, exactly. But from Kalmar, we actually ship to over 70 countries each year, which I think is sort of incredible. And one of our bigger markets is actually South Korea, on almost the other side of the world. And we have actually set up our own line haul and air shipping. So if a customer in South Korea places an order at nordicnest.kr, they can have their products at their home within 48 hours. So we're pretty proud of being able to do that from Kalmar. And a couple of the numbers, as you see here, we have around 55,000 products in our assortment, and that's both Nordic Nest, but we also have a second brand within our group, which is Svenssons in Lammhult, which is actually a very old retailer in Sweden, founded back in 1898, which is a while back. But they operate in that brand. We have more sort of bigger, larger premium furniture, and at Nordic Nest we have more focused on smaller interior items. And last Black Friday, we actually peaked at 5 orders per second during the last, I think, around 5 minutes of Black Friday, which was quite insane to just see those huge numbers. And
was it during the tattoos, or what was that? Was it kind of they were living high life. Now it's amazing numbers and kind of the growth and doing it from where you are and kind of growing the team as well as you are, but whilst keeping that spirit. I think it's amazing. But if like on that point, if we kind of look at this one, because you have to grow as you do, you have to, like, even though you can't think ahead, but you need to be somewhere in the way you think about your IT structure, your infrastructure, and all these things when you scale globally. And kind of this way, we've framed it as composable and pros and cons around that. But before we go into that, do you think in composable, because it's been headless, it's been a lot of different names, but in my mind, you want to be decoupled so you can scale independently between different services, but then you can have a composable system. But what's your kind of, in a general way, take on these different words or buzzwords, call them whatever?
Yeah. There's sort of buzzwords that mean the same thing, and I'm looking forward to see what the buzzword for this will be in 10 years. But
exactly.
The key thing, and you said it pretty well, that is in order for us to be able to move fast and to be adaptable, which is also a key area. I don't see any other way than going composable for that. So to give you a bit of history. At Nordic Nest, we decided in the end of 2019 that we needed to sort of do a big overhaul of our entire infrastructure, and that before that we had a pretty traditional setup with a big brand, sort of monolithic e-commerce platform that sort of did most things, and then we had a traditional ERP system in the back end, and that was sort of the big landscape. And the hard thing about that was tough to drive change. It was took a long time to implement new features and was sort of overall hard to maintain. So we, in the end of 2019, we decided that we need to do a big overhaul and change all of this out.
And what was did you get support for that, or was it like, do we really have to it, or did the company kind of trust you or your guidance in that, or was it, can we kind of maximize what we have? Do we really have to invest in this?
Well, the support from the company is, and all employees are great, because in the culture that we work very hard to achieve at Nordic Nest, we really love and embrace change, and we want to do things better every day. So when we said when we said that we want to do this and presented that to all employees, I don't think I saw anyone saying, "Oh, this is going to be bad," or "This is going to be hard," because we do love a challenge, and we also very much love to do things better. And this was sort of the one thing that we needed to do in order to take sort of a frog leap in terms of how we can make things better. And I had to work a bit with the board we had at the time to do this, because the company had changed platforms 2 years before, which was 1 year before I started.
They were like, didn't we do that already?
Yeah, exactly.
Is time changing that fast, really?
Precisely, but it's actually pretty easy to present this in sort of a financial way, which makes sense to the board as well, because in the end we want to drive more business, and you need to invest in order to achieve that. So the main reasons behind this was that we wanted to move faster, we wanted to be more agile, and we wanted to be able to adapt more quickly. I cannot stress this enough, because if you have a company where you think, okay, we don't need to be very fast, we're good enough, you're gonna be passed sooner or later by someone else.
Leapfrog the other direction then pretty fast.
Yeah, exactly.
But if now you mentioned some of the pros there, like one of the, if we go to the challenges of doing this, kind of what the learnings, if you were like, because now you're going to continuously do this and improve your infrastructure, the way you kind of change systems and integrate new systems. But what was kind of the cons, so to speak, in doing this, or the challenge, I would call them more?
I would say the sort of biggest challenge is it puts a demand on very high sort of tech know-how with all your employees, not just the development department or tech department, because all people who are using the systems need to be, I like to say, digital natives, if you will. So if you have people who say, "Oh, I just want to log into one place and I want to do all my stuff in that place and never leave that," and who say, "Okay, do I need to log into 2 places now? This is going to be hard." That's going to be a challenge for you, because you need to sort of teach your employees, okay, how do we do business now with this sort of infrastructure, because that's a very different setup than a lot of people are used to. The sort of the
one place
side
to go to, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The flip side on that is when we bring in new personnel or personnel that just finished school and just graduated, they think this setup is quite easy to work with. So it's sort of a I don't want to say generation gap thing, but
exactly. We're the old generation,
but a little bit.
So they're like, what are these two guys talking about? They really don't know nothing. But I also feel that this is a generational thing, and also that there's some of the new employees won't accept the old ways of working, because they expect something different, and they are really native with the screens, the clicks, the fasts, and they are working at a different pace in a different way. So I think there is a change there as well. But if we go here to the next one and kind of go through your stack here, and if we just can like take it from the right or left there, just to give the people an understanding of what it consists of.
Yes, so I think this is a good sort of high-level picture on our technical infrastructure today. So we use Commerce Tools as our commerce engine.
Not a lot of screenshots here, but click, 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 click.
So Commerce Tools is our commerce engine where we manage transactions and that sort of thing. So it drives sales on all of our sites, and it will also drive sales for any future endeavors that we want. Let's say we want to open a completely new channel for some sort of new commerce experience that doesn't exist today. We can use commerce tools to support that. For our PIM system, we use in River, which I think sort of is an industry standard today, at least in Northern Europe. For our CRM, we use Viado, which is also a Swedish company. Not a very traditional CRM in the sense of doing like B2B and that sort of thing, but a CRM really tailored for retailers and how retailers want to work with consumers today.
Connect with your customers and kind of have that engagement.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of hard to explain in just a few minutes, but imagine, if you will, some
each
sort
of
of
these
old,
would hijack you for a webinar as well. So
yeah, exactly. And for support, we use Freshdesk. For CMS, we use Contentful, which is also big in the Headless Composable stack. And for our warehouse, we use a system called Bitlog. And the ERP on the far right here is very traditional Microsoft Dynamics NAV setup. So I wouldn't say the ERP system is very straight in that matter, but we have extracted a lot of things that a lot of people or companies put in the ERP. We have that in other systems because we want to have the best tool for the job. And that's that's sort of key for us as well.
But that I think is the composable mindset at this essence. Like because ERP were the essence when you consolidated everything and got it in there, and now you kind of move things out of there to do what they're best at, and that they can scale with the growth that you guys have. So I think that's really part of why you go composable.
Exactly. So with this setup, we have the best tools for each job we want to do, but here we also get to really sense or feel the challenges that Composable brings, because we have a lot of data, but the data is very siloed due to the nature of this sort of setup. And I've seen a lot of e-commerce setups during the years, and what most people do, and what I've also been doing previously, is to put all the data that you want to be accessible by all, you put that in your e-commerce platform, because the e-commerce platform is going to be live 24/7, and you put a lot of effort into keeping that available.
It's a big investment. It's like everybody knows about it, but this is it's good that you bring it up. This is my, like in Swedish, käpphäst. This is kind of what people do, and that's the mindset that we're trying to get people to think differently around. But so keep going, please.
Yeah, and what happens when you do that, you sort of solve this, sort of like peeing in your pants. You get warm for a while, and then you get cold, and
classic analogy.
So what you do what happens when you do that is you sort of build up quite a big technical debt, and that debt needs to be resolved somewhere down the line. And if you keep doing that for a while, you're gonna have a very big headache and a big challenge when you end up in a place where you need to resolve it. So that's actually why we went with Octo.
Yeah, now what I'm saying, because we know you guys, and you and your team, you're really good at like integration. You're skilled in cloud technology. You work a lot with Azure. But also what I like meeting you and your team is that you were also interested in testing things or kind of doing more of the things differently, because otherwise I meet a lot of like it's build versus buy. Should we do this ourselves or should we invest in something? Could you elaborate a little bit about your team's mindset in those kind of buy versus build?
Yeah, so it actually boils down to the culture and also the way we work at Nordic Nest, because we want to move fast. And if we sort of see an opportunity somewhere for some sort of a business opportunity, and we say, okay, should we build this ourselves or should we buy something that solves this? And most often we end up in, okay, we buy something because then we can test it and try it out and see, does it actually work? And by doing that, we have made a pretty small commitment in terms of investment. And we can see if does this actually work the way we thought it would. Do we see any sort of challenges or that sort of thing? comparing that to building something where you need to invest quite a lot of development hours upfront before you actually see is it good enough. So that's a key thing at Nordic Nest. We very often end up in buying something to test it and try it out and see is it for us. And depending on the outcome of that, we might in the long run end up that we want to build it ourselves, but we haven't done that so far because we want to move forward faster, and that's
exactly. You're growing so fast anyway, but I like that also, and that's part of, I think, the new stack and a composable mindset, at least in my world, that you have, like, for us it's 3-month agreements. If we don't bring value, we don't continue to work together. So it's part of our DNA as well, and I think that's part of the modern stack, that you have to be able to do that and validate things pretty fast. I use that, like, fail fast. It's kind of part of my DNA, but also think big, start small, scale fast, which is kind of part of what you talked about earlier here, in the mindsets you instill in the teams in Nordic Nest. I think that's pretty cool. So if we kind of take that a step further and go into kind of more what Octo brought to the table in this setup. So if you could elaborate a little bit more around that.
Yeah. So what we wanted to achieve, we had a sort of a vision internally that we wanted to have a complete 360 view of our customers for our customer service team, because they wanted to really give the best customer experience possible. In order to do that, you need good tools to help you doing that. Because if you imagine that you're in a customer service agent and you're taking calls and you need to look up information in like 7 or 10 different places in order to give the customer an answer, that's not going to be, it's going to be okay, but it's not going to be incredible. So we had a vision of sort of bringing all the customer data together and present that in a view for our customer service agents, in order for them to really, what we often say, wow the customer. And when we first started talking, you and I, Jimmy, I sort of had this idea and felt like, wow, this is where Octo can really help us, again, frog leap this. Because if we were to do this sort of setup ourselves, that would mean, I'm just guessing, but somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000 development hours, very likely internally.
Even more, I would say.
Yeah. We have fast developers here at Nordic Nest. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that would be a huge investment, and the investment is not an issue for us. But the issue for us is we only have a finite number of development resources, and we have a backlog that's humongous.
We discussed it. This is always one of the things you wanted to do, but it always got pushed like further down the line because there was always more critical things that you had to prioritize. The classic one, like it's in the roadmap, or we can prioritize it.
Exactly, because we have other things that's going to bring even more business value, and so I think most CTOs can relate to that feeling. So and again, this is where I really liked Octo, and as you said before, the sort of 3-month agreement setup where you can try it out really quickly and see, does it work, does it bring value. And if it does, just keep using it and keep building on it. So we brought together data from all of these systems and onboarded that into Octo. And by using Octo as a platform, we could pretty easily build a sort of a presentation view, a view layer for our customer service teams, where they can easily navigate all available data of the customer within half a second. And that's really
exactly 500 milliseconds, because they have somebody in the phone, so they have to be able to answer fast and give, as you say, wow the customer, and like part of what you guys are doing. And also in doing that, because there's lots of data in this system, everybody saw the number before, but what Octo did is, like, we focused on the vertical integration of enabling kind of data to be consumable, kind of activating and making data unified. So then it becomes a lot easier to build that kind of, as we call it, the customer service app. So data becomes super fast as Octo persists the data in its layer. So building the app in itself became more, because we sat alone, because this we did together, because this was early days, almost pre-COVID. So like time just shrank in between there, but here we are. But to sit down with your team and more the design, the layout, the processes, the trial and errors, we kind of building that app became so much easier. We could focus on that when we had done the work of unifying and activating the data, which is kind of, I would say, the secret sauce of Octo, because now you have the data here. What can you do with it? But it's not that you look at the data, say, I want to unify our data and see what we can do with it. You had a tactical app that you wanted to build. And I love also that you invested in employee apps. It's an app for employees. So usually when we talk about it's customer apps or customer engagement, and that's kind of what we do. But this is customer engagement, people to people. So it's another interaction point, but it's equally important.
Exactly, and as you sort of went to it's a thing that's very often forgotten, because you tend to focus on what can we do for the customer and on the customer front end, if you will. But you have a lot of people serving customers. And if you empower them with better tools, they can give a better experience to customer in the long run. And again, if you have good tools for all your employees, you're going to be more motivated. They're going to do a better job.
Once again, keep them motivated.
More profitability. So again, that it's to our 3 cornerstones at Nordic Nest. This Octo project sort of checked all the boxes quite fast. Should we do this or not? And since we could do it with a very small investment and to try it out really quickly, for us it was sort of a no-brainer to go ahead.
Yeah, so cool. No, so Octo, an experience data platform, activating data, and kind of that would enable what we call the customer service app. But with no further ado, should we kind of look into a bit what that is? If you start by kind of giving how this is used by your team and kind of some of the numbers around it, I can then kind of backtrack how we did it in broader terms.
Yeah. So when a customer service gets either a ticket from let's say an email or a chat, or if they get a phone call, what you do first is they need to find a customer. And before our customer service app here, they needed to find a customer in like 4 or 5 different systems. And ERP, everyone who has worked with that know that ERP systems are anything but fast. So just searching for a customer in the ERP could take like 5 or 10 seconds, which is, when you're on the phone, it's like for ages. So what you do here
they were really good at cold talking, if that's like small talking, it's called in English.
Small talking, yeah. So what you do here, they are able to find a customer just by searching for the name, email, or whatnot, any sort of information that the customer provides in the ticket or on the phone, and they can find the customer lightning fast and get this what we call 360 view of the customer. So we have a lot of data from a lot of systems that's quite tightly aggregated in the screenshot you see here. So we have data from like our PRIM system. We have transactional data from the ERP. We have all customer data from the CRM system. So the customer agent can see, does this customer often open our newsletters? Do they have sort of a high engagement rating, if you will? Or are they a customer who's more of perhaps I just want to order something, I'm not very committed to reading about this and that, or so what sort of type of customer is it? And also here you can sort of see the customer's engagement to different brands that we have at Nordic Nest.
Yeah, what they usually buy and then kind of the categories to brands.
Because most people have a sort of a brand affinity to certain brands, and by being able to see that very quickly, the customer service agent can help the customer, guide the customer in what sort of tips and tricks can we do on that. Have you seen this new release from this brand, and that sort of thing, which was impossible before this.
And also, I think this is fun. Is our CMO Katarina Nilsson that we can see. So she's a good customer, and then we should respect her. But it's pretty cool that you can kind of engage in a different way when you have somebody on the phone. And as you say, a conversation is in milliseconds, because it is a micro moment that you guys can catch by having this app as well. And also, your team, as I know, it feels good about this app. It's their work environment, so they work a lot within this and then feel very proud about it, that they can do a lot of stuff. And I know we have a roadmap. There's a lot of new initiatives, and you have other ideas with other apps that could be built by just combining the data we have in different ways. So that it's pretty cool to see kind of what this sparked innovation within your teams and within Nordic Nest as well.
Yeah, and you know, that's actually it's incredible. I'm really psyched about this because we have onboarded a lot of data for this project, and we can sort of launch like 2 or 3 or 4 new projects quite easily just with the data that we have already in Octo. And as you said, on the roadmap that we have together, we have, I think there are 5 or 6 new data sources that we want to onboard as well.
Yeah.
And when we have that data, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And kind of with your guys' mindset and the way we innovate and kind of releasing that data or activating that data, there's so much more you can do when you start doing it differently. So
Yeah.
quickly go around like what is this, and kind of as we alluded to it before, but we've built or onboarded and unified the data inside of Octo, which we have something called source, where we onboard like the raw data. And in this case, there's lots of data from both like Voyado, Nav, NAV, and the Freshdesk and all of these different systems. But by doing that work in Octo and kind of keeping that onboarding, I think it's over 30 gigabytes per second that we can onboard. So there's a lot of data going through the system here. But by doing that, when we expose this in what we call destination, it's real-time RESTful APIs that are purpose-built for this app. So building the app in itself, which is just a thin React app, becomes very easy in doing that. So that's kind of the blue pill that Octo brings to the table, makes this, or making this very different than developing it in the old way, and kind of moving data, creating these new databases, integrating, mapping data models, which is hard because you have to keep the integrity of the data for the backend system. There's a different way of kind of exposing data versus controlling data. So there's different things in kind of how you look on that. But it's and as you say, less than 500 milliseconds for people to just click around there. And I think it's pretty cool. Every time they have a call, it just refresh, and they have like the order number, the phone number, or something else that they just keep like going through customers over and over and over again. So it's really heavily used. Like give us kind of, because this is what we call an employee app. So it's what we call low frequency because it's behind the firewalls. It's like logged in users. But how many users are using this today?
Well, that's also very exciting because we currently have around 60 people working with our customer care team, our customer service team, which is also traditional customer service, but also claims and returns and that sort of thing. But since at Nordic Nest we have a very high peak during November and December, and both Black Friday and sales for Christmas and that sort of thing. So we're actually onboarding 60 new employees over the coming 6 weeks.
Pretty cool.
So we're going to be, or actually more than 60. We're going to be 130 people using this app in around 7 weeks from now.
And onboarding them without this app, if you didn't have this app, onboarding these people and training them in order to be fast and responsive,
it would be a big work and a tremendous hurdle for all people because now they can start within this app, and if they feel a bit insecure, okay, what system should I look for, which system should I open, I can start within this app and very easily navigate onwards. So I can see, okay, this customer has a few tickets in Freshdesk. I can click on them, get to the ticket directly in Freshdesk. I don't need to know how to search within Freshdesk. I can quickly navigate.
There's links in here, exactly. I think that's a good point. It's not like Octo does it. We only expose the data. So it's not that the data is in Octo. It's still the source system that owns the data, and you can really go in there and kind of dig deeper if needed. But this gives you kind of, as you said, a holistic view of the customer in your different systems.
Exactly. So I can start working and serving customers, within a few hours of training. Because I don't need to remember, okay, how amazing. Did I log into this one, or where should I find the search bar for this? I can just go into our customer service app. I can find the customer. I can find all the orders. I can find all the tickets. I can see what are they most likely to buy next, and that sort of thing. So
now when I hear this, I hear we need to price this differently. I was so naive.
No.
But it's amazing to hear, and we're so proud to work with you and being part of that scaling. So to continue a bit here, like if you were to give a final advice on your Composable success, because it's an amazing success to the whole of the Nordic Nest team and specifically to you, Jakob. But if you were to kind of give the people here some final advice, what would that be?
Yeah, so to sort of sum up all this and have 3 takeaways from this webinar. So what I would recommend you is you need to start preparing the team quite early, because it's a very big transition, especially if you have a traditional like monolithic setup today. It's going to be a very, very big change for the team. So start preparing them for this very early on. And again, I as you said, I really like the fail fast method. So you don't need to do like this very major big overhaul like we did. You can just start smaller.
And start with something. I like that as well, to kind of change, because there's something with like composable headless that people like get the FOMO of moving, but it's also invested a lot in a stack because you want to use modern things and scale faster. So Octo can mitigate some of that risk as well by just releasing the data, and then you can start changing afterwards as well. So there's different ways, but I think the mindset there, as you say, for the teams are really important. You have to go out of that old mindset and be prepared to work in a different mindset. I think that's very important to be.
It's extremely important, and if you do that well, you're going to have an amazing journey by doing it. But if you do that poorly, like every single project out there where you don't involve the team in a good way, you're going to have a horrible experience. So
it's going to be exactly resistance and fighting, and kind of change is hard.
Exactly. So really, prep the team early for it. And the second thing I say to everyone is the Composable is quite hard. When you talk to the vendors, you talk to Commerce Tools and Contentful and whatnot, they all say it's easy. You have the APIs, you just plug it in and you're good to go. But it's hard. It's hard to do it right because there are a lot of hurdles. It's a sort of a new way working with the tech that you haven't done before. So use a partner.
And let's be honest, they all need Octo.
Yeah, definitely. So and what I really like about you, Jimmy, and your team is you understand e-commerce in a way that very few do. There are a lot of, if I'm gonna be a bit harsh, there are a lot of e-commerce, web firms out there that doesn't really understand e-commerce. So you need to find a very good partner, and I can really recommend Jimmy and your whole team on that. If anyone wants to contact me afterwards, I can send over a few tips more on good partners that we have at Nordic Nest. But use partner support for it, because it's going to move a hell of a lot quicker, and you don't end up in a risk that you're building something in the wrong way, and then you need to do a big overhaul on it 1 year after. So use that in a way that makes sense to you. And the third one, which is I would like to say almost the most important one, because if you don't remove data silos, if you don't manage the challenge where you have data in different systems in a good way, you're going to have a tremendous amount of headaches and issues and
hard to scale.
All this sort of it's very hard to scale. So you need to be on top of that early on in the process. And if you start small and you start doing one thing, it's quite easy to manage it. But when at later stages, when you add more systems, or when you when you have done it all and you remove the old monolith and you have this whole new fancy composable stack, you need a way to consolidate the data, because that's going to be a big challenge if you don't have it. So really keep that in mind from the start.
Yeah, I think it's a super good point. Prepare the team, partner support the ecosystem, and remove data silos, and remove any silo you can find, like in personnel or whatever kind of. But I think you're good at that, and kind of keep removing obstacles or kind of make everything as smooth as you can. Great stuff. I'll also, and then, as you say, reach out to any of us, and we'll be more than happy to kind of engage with all of you here. I looked at the questions here, and some of them were kind of, we answered them along the way. It was more like, did you think Composable, Mac, which partners do you work with? What kind of decisions did you take, and kind of what was the composition of the teams? I think we covered a lot of these questions. If you have more questions, we try to, because there were some of them around Octo specifically, I'll answer them directly as well. So thank you a lot for posting so many questions. It's been a pleasure to be here with you, Jakob. Like we have to do this again. There's more to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, I could go on for another hour.
Yeah, no, I was like thinking that you and I were here just discussing. I have to bite my tongue so this didn't become too kind of as it usually is. So a pleasure to be here with you, Jakob, and also like
likewise.
Yeah, happy Tuesday to the rest of the people in the meeting. So thank you for this one.
Thank you.